Please welcome to the Explore Scientific stage, Mr. Ken Martz.
Hey everybody, Kent Martz here on our afternoon broadcast on Facebook and YouTube. Today is How Do You Know? And right now I have with me an in-studio guest who has a show later on today at 4 o'clock named How Do You Know? I have Professor Professor, a friend of mine.
I'm going to start calling you names now.
Professor, Dr. Professor, I'll take those names. That's not, I've been called far worse. I'm a baseball umpire. There's few things you can call me
that you haven't already
that have already been called. Anyway, he's the teacher who teaches the teachers how to teach science.
There you go.
And we got a pretty cool topic today. What are we talking about?
Today, we're going to talk about, on How Do You Know, we're going to talk about the origins of life on Earth, which we now think is several hundred million years earlier than we thought. And our program today is going to be about science equipment that you can have in your home for your children that can help them explore life and the origins of it in your own backyard. So that's pretty exciting. I think it's always great when we get students hooked on science. Kent, the wonderful thing I tell my young teachers, the thing to do is to set the hook and set hearts afire for science and mathematics. And we don't usually do that with textbooks. We never do that with worksheets we send home with homework. We do that with activities. When we say, okay, take the gloves off, you actually get to touch it, handle it, try it, work the equipment. And when children get to engage with the materials in front of them, that's when they get excited about science, mathematics, and all that exciting learning. That's when the classroom becomes dynamic. That's when the teacher is a hero. Whether you're talking about mom, dad, homeschool teaching, or you're talking about teacher in school, it's when we actually put the materials in the children's hands that they become excited about what we are trying to teach them.
So you're a man with uses pretty precise words.
I try.
And you said a few 100 million years
earlier,
older than we. You didn't say thought. You said taught. Right? You picked a very specific word.
I did.
You didn't say thought.
I did.
You said taught. But Dr. Daniel, this is science.
This is science in action.
This is science. No, it doesn't change, right?
Oh, no, it changes all the time.
How does it happen? Because when people say, well, science says this, and it's a fact, it's a scientific fact.
No.
You know, but you and I hear that all the time.
We hear that all the time.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, what you actually have, Kent, science, most people, the way it's taught, science is a step-by-step progression of brilliant people making discoveries and building on the shoulders of giants,
Bingo.
Right? On the shoulders of giants. In fact, science is more like a cage match at a dive bar.
It's messy.
It's messy, it's sloppy, and somebody says, I have a new theory. And immediately, everybody, the long knives come out, and everybody goes after and tries to prove that wrong. Because there's two ways to make your reputation in science. One is to discover something is true. The other is to shoot down somebody else's idea and say it wasn't true.
Right.
And career-wise, both things are equally valid, and a lot more people are capable of poking holes in a theory than figuring out a new one.
And the point of poking holes in it is if no one can, after a certain period of time,
That's why I call it a cage match.
it goes from being a scientific hypothesis, you can propose it as a theory, but when it becomes a judged to be established theory,
Yes.
that is meaning really fact as we know it at this
Nobody's
time.
poked holes in it yet.
Because
And
sooner or later,
That's right, sooner or later. And you realize, why is Einstein famous? And I say Einstein because Einstein said Einstein.
did he? I didn't know
Yes,
that.
he did.
Okay.
Proper German pronunciation. Anyway, in America, we say Einstein, but he didn't say that. Doesn't matter. Why is he famous? He's famous because he was the first man in 350 years to poke a hole in Newton's theory of gravity.
And what's crazy and making him even more famous now is people aren't poking holes in him. They've been trying for 100 years and more now
10 years
to poke holes.
Yes, they have.
To poke holes.
More
to
than a
poke holes.
century.
And the amazing thing about Albert, cousin Albert, you can make a Beatles reference.
my
Sorry.
pal Al.
Technically my cousin.
My pal Al.
My pal Al.
The cool thing is, he did all that, and all these ideas he put forth, he never really conducted experiments.
He was a theorist.
Everything he did were thought experiments in his head.
He did some experimental work with quantum theory and photoelectric effect. That's what he got a Nobel for. He never received a Nobel Prize or major prize for relativity, mostly because during his lifetime, nobody could conceive of a test to say, is it true, is it not true? And we had hints. There was the famous eclipse in 1919. Eddington and Dyson went to look and they got data, but it was very controversial.
Just a little bit.
Oh, the measurements were so precise and such small effects. We still hear every once in a while somebody say, I found Al was wrong. I found theory of relativity, and then almost like clockwork. A few months later, nope, we were wrong. Nope, our experiment was miscalibrated. Sorry, everybody.
Math was wrong, or observations were wrong.
The last one we heard, CERN, they were saying, oh, we think we've got this correction for relativity.
What's a CERN? Talk about what CERN is.
CERN is the high energy collision nuclear collider in Europe. It's in borders between, it sits on the border of France and Switzerland. Am I correct?
Right. Belgium, maybe? Anyway, but it's on the border of
a couple of countries. And this is this huge 26-kilometer ring where they smash protons and antiprotons and things together.
And then watch what gets miraculously.
They thought they had an experiment which contradicted relativity theory. What they found was they were not accounting for the drift of the GPS satellites in the couple of seconds it took to make their measurement. And when they put that correction back in, oops, it's just like Albert said.
Yeah. It's just like he said.
Nobody shot down Al.
And one of the most controversial things, if I remember reading about Albert Einstein.
You can say Einstein. Everybody does.
Einstein was that he didn't account for the gravitational constant, so he put in that idea that
he wanted the universe to be steady state.
He wanted to be steady state, and then he came back and put in
this cosmological constant
and
to correct for it.
Correct for it. And he did it just sort of, okay, here, be quiet now, people.
Yeah.
And it worked. I mean, it's proven to be, he fixed his mistake in a very elegant way.
Right. And when he was disagreeing with Hubble, he was saying, no, this expanding universe, it can't be true. He later called that his greatest blunder. And if you look at his theories, and other people did, and they worked out the solution, you could have it would work, relativity works, if the universe is expanding, static, or contracting. And from that, we had the idea, which we can't conceive of how to do an experiment to figure this out. Will the universe expand forever? Or will it, like a ball you toss up, it goes up, it must come down. Will the universe reach a maximum point
and then contract,
crunch back down again? You have Big Bang, then you have Big Crunch.
Right. But the question is, what's going to stop that expansion? And if memory serves,
we don't think it will now.
We don't think it will. No. Everything seems to be accelerating.
Yes.
And there's no mechanism by which to apply a brake.
That we know of.
Correct.
But then they had inflation, right? They had inflation. Could you not have contraction? And I'm speaking off my cuff here, folks.
Neither one of us are. But we read.
We do.
We read and we pay attention.
We are well read.
And we pay attention.
Sir Roger Penrose,
yes,
who is a
colleague of Hawking.
Yeah, physics. He wrote Physics of Consciousness and stuff like that.
He wrote a number of
theoretical physicist.
Yes,
he believes that the universe expands and it will eventually collapse back in on itself.
I think his public declaration of that was pre-dark energy. I don't know if he still.
Yeah.
I don't know if he still holds to that.
He did a podcast about 2 months ago where he was talking about it. So he confirmed he still believes it.
If he's still saying it, then
he's in the minority.
He is one of the most brilliant men in the world today. A colleague that Stephen Hawking respected very, very much. And if anything that comes out of out of Roger Penrose's mouth, or that he writes down, or I'm going to pay close attention.
Yeah.
And
he's the one that told me that when light appears, it's immediately at its destination, whether it's 4 billion years.
Well,
or,
now we're getting into relativity and
yeah.
Minkowski solution, the Lorentz dilations, and
I just wanted to reiterate that because we had a conversation off
did.
air, and that's who I got it from.
So, the state of science is constantly changing.
it is constantly changing. It's always in flux.
It's in flux, and I think that's what frustrates a lot of people.
It does.
People want black and white, salt or pepper. It doesn't change. This is what it is, because at that point, it gives you, me, a person, some feeling of form and consistency
Right.
and structure, and that thought that things can change,
Disquieting.
it can be very disquieting.
It is.
That's a great
It's
term.
upsetting, yes.
It's upsetting. Do you face that when you teach the
Every day.
teachers how to teach?
Every day.
And give us a couple of examples of that.
One of the examples I give to my students all the time is I tell them, do you remember how you were taught science? Don't do it that way.
Ha!
And I said, okay, how many of y'all would go into science class and it was read this section of the chapter and answer the questions at the
fill out
end?
the worksheet.
And they all raised their hand. I said, okay, how many of y'all remember going in and teacher says, okay, watch the video on YouTube and take notes? And they all raised their hand. I said, how many of y'all remember that an experiment where you put your hands on was a rare thing? It happened a couple times a year. And the teacher said, now this is real expensive. Don't touch that. And they all raised their hands. I said, don't teach that way. And I advocate low-cost science. We talk about orreries, right? The model of the solar system with the planets. And if you go to buy one, you probably know you're talking $500 to $1,500.
You can spend more than
Oh,
that.
you
on
can
a
spend
pretty
more than
one,
that, but even
nice
just a
mechanical
classroom.
one, yeah.
Just a classroom model, $500, $1,000, $1,500. And I say, okay, would you let a student in 3rd grade, 5th grade, 9th grade play with that? And they all said, oh no, because that would be like my whole budget for 3 years. I wouldn't let a kid play with that. I wouldn't let him touch it. I said, okay, let's make our own planetary models with ping pong balls and Gatorade caps and markers and glue.
Coat hangers. Yeah, whatever.
Basically, and we do it on a tabletop for pennies. To make an Earth-Moon model costs less than $1. To make all the major, to make a model for Venus, you've got an inferior planet, you've got Earth-Moon, you've got Mars and Jupiter, so you have an inner solar system superior planet, outer solar system superior planet. Let's make that sun, let's toss in the sun. That model costs you about $2.50.
Yeah.
They are so cheap, every child can play with it. I stepped on my moon. Fine, Billy, make another one. Here's a ping pong ball.
I stepped on my
hate
moon.
the
That's a
sun.
great T-shirt. I stepped on my moon. Okay.
I would be the guy that would be like, I can't finish this because I ate my son.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So, Dr. Barth has written a book.
Yes.
And
A new one.
Do you have a new one out, or the one that's been out for? Okay, that one.
You're talking about
Yeah.
the last
Yeah,
one, okay.
Yeah, and so he's got a book out that is all sorts of science things you can
More
do
than,
really
more than
easy.
3 dozen experiments, follow-on observations.
And he makes a lot of money off of it. He makes a lot of money off of
yeah,
it.
the book, friend, is called Astronomy for Educators. You can put it into any search engine. You'll find the link. It's published by the University of Arkansas
100%
Press.
of the proceeds.
It's free.
Wait a minute, you don't get any. You did it. You don't get anything from it.
No,
Right.
no.
It's free.
It's free.
The price is really low. Free.
It is the right price. And
it's good. A lot of free stuff. You're like, okay, it's
well,
free, but
more
this
than
is great stuff. In
almost 7,800 schools in more than 50 countries have adopted this as a
there.
text.
Right.
And the teachers are using it to teach. It's free for anybody if you want to learn about. Let's do some activities. And this is all primarily classroom tabletop activities to learn about astronomy.
Yeah.
But there's also follow-on, if you did this and you want to actually go out and observe and see this in your backyard with a small telescope or binocular, there's all kinds of activities like that.
So, when Daniel talks about the experiments and the teachers and science and all that, I love science. I love natural sciences. I love earth sciences. I love, celestial science. I remember exactly one teacher's name. Bill Merriweather was the physics teacher at Springdale High School when I was in high school. And I remember him because we did experiments all the time, and he
Absolutely.
let us do experiments.
Absolutely.
We also shocked him once really, really badly with the Leyden jar and the Van de Graaff spear. And
I
then
shocked most of my teachers.
We also managed to actually electrocute him and started to stop his heart one year. It was pretty scary. He touched a cathode ray tube. We charged it up and didn't really realize it was a gigantic capacitor, and he discharged it. So it was very, very scary there for a few minutes. But we're going to get out of here. We're getting ready
Astro Beard.
Oh, okay. Questions from the audience?
This is what I'm trying to do, Ken. I'm trying to get you to
I
shut up
thought you were
so I
saying,
can tell
I thought you were
the
saying
comments.
wrap it up and get out of here.
Let's
No,
have him. Let's hear
Astro
it.
Beard says, howdy.
That's the standard greeting, as you well know.
Howdy, partner.
Howdy. And Dr. Barth will be back on at 4 o'clock on the social media broadcast here in a few, at
He's
4
also
o'clock
gonna be
to go
on
down his
Amazon.
agenda of discussions. He'll be by himself. Scott's not here today, so that's why
But
Dr.
he's
Barth.
going to be on Amazon.
We're going to talk about that, Paul. He's going to be back at 4 to do his social media blast.
Wow.
He'll be in the studio. That's why he's there, because Scott's gone traveling, and so he's not here to run the show. So we're going to run it out of here. And he will also be on us here with us at 2 o'clock on Amazon Live. So we'll be doing that as well. And we'll be talking about some products.
Harold
as well.
Locke says that you're a very lucky person, Mr. Kent Martz.
I'm lucky to be with him. I'll tell you
And
that.
vice versa.
I appreciate that very much. Yeah, you know, it was really. I said you were talking about that, and I can remember the faces of my eighth grade I think Earth Science teacher, 8th or 9th grade Earth Sciences teacher, whatever year, 7th, 8th, or 9th. No, nobody else. I can't remember any other science teachers except for Mr. Merriweather. And you know, he was a great teacher. You know, he made concepts simple. I mean, you know, and he encouraged you to really participate in things. And one year we went to the you had to make a thing that we could drop eggs in. It could weigh no more than whatever.
Yeah.
And we experimented, and we came up with, Eddie Thomas and I came up with a paper bag, and it was lead weights on the bottom so you could tell which the bottom was. Not that it made it fall that way, but lead weights on the bottom, and we could drop it off of the top of the press box at Springdale, and eggs would survive every time. But then we went down to, so I wanted to find out, well, my mom worked at Springdale Memorial Hospital, and they just built that 6-story tower. And so we knew Bill McCauley, the maintenance director, sure, let's go. Dropped them off the top, survived, no problem. Okay. So we go to the University of Arkansas where they're dropping it off of, like, I don't know what building it was, don't remember. Tall building, right? We're confident. Eddie and I are supremely confident. And then we just see people, I guess there must have been a parapet wall, and they were just throwing things over. And ours comes over, and where it goes? That's upside down, because we had painted the bottom of the bottom black so we could see it. Upside down, no worky.
Explosion?
No worky, yeah. And we were like, had they dropped it just like that, I'm confident it would have worked.
Well,
you know, with just popcorn.
My students did, we did some other things. We had them build their own submarine.
Mm-hmm.
Catapult to throw a golf ball into a trash can on the 50-yard line from the end zone.
That's spectacular.
We had students build, you know, those water bottle rockets? Mm-hmm. We had them build water rocket cars.
Yes.
They would hit 60, 75 miles an hour.
Awesome.
We did submarines one year, wind-up submarine. Had to go dive, surface, make turns underwater. We did optics experiments.
This is when you were a kid.
No, this is my high school physics class.
Yeah, your high school.
I taught high school in California.
Yeah, that's California. When you were teaching.
When I was teaching.
Yeah,
when I was teaching high school.
Gotcha.
So,
you know that, and those kids remember that.
I'm sure they do.
I guarantee you,
they
remember the chaos that they participated in trying to get this stuff to work.
So you didn't do any of that at the university?
You know what? I never taught physics at the university level. I taught astronomy at the college level.
Okay.
Our egg drop, though, was a little bit different. We had a brick, and we taped the egg to the bottom of the brick, and then we gave them a bungee cord, and they had to make their own bungee cord made out of rubber bands. And I would tell them the height. That in the beginning of the period, they had to adjust their bungee cord, hang it up, and they had to drop the brick, and it had to bungee down to the floor and go back up, and it was the closest one to the floor without breaking the
So
egg.
how did you measure the distance close to the floor? Did you put?
Oh yeah, we had
how'd you
a
measure
scale,
distance?
and I was down there
I just
lying on
eyeballed
the
it.
floor.
So
Yes,
I know if you put ink on it and had.
No, we
and tried to get it
basically
come
we didn't
touch.
have the money
Okay.
for that. We had a ruler taped vertically, and the kids could watch it come down.
So-
this is before cell phone era, so we couldn't
I
video.
Couldn't do a
know
slow
of
motion
someone,
thing.
when you said that you had to make trebuchets,
Yes.
right? I know of someone, and that's why I was asking if you did at the university, because I know of someone that built a trebuchet and then shot flaming tennis balls over Old Main.
Okay.
And yeah,
That wouldn't be hard.
So for my oldest son's 8th grade science fair project, he's into guns and weaponry and stuff, right? He wants to make a potato cannon, which is prohibited by rules of
Yes.
science fair projects.
Yes.
However, he submitted a proposal, Dr. D, for a potato launcher,
And they approved it.
and they approved it. We were shooting, and he's like, well, I was like, Jeff, we've got to come up with a way to
it wouldn't get
have a
that way
cons-
now.
Probably
Well.
not, but we had to come up with a way to make consistent pieces of potato. Otherwise, the data is not going to be good. And the point was, which over-the-counter propellant
Worked best.
worked best? And so it was turned out it was a specific, I would say flavor, but smell of Axe was significantly better after hundreds of potato shots. And we went through bags and bags. And so he built this rig where it measured off, and he just cut the ends off the potato, right?
Right.
And he sharpened up the end of, and we had a
the PVC tube?
pipe that was like 6 feet long,
Yeah.
and he'd just push it down and would cut off everything, so we got a fairly consistent core, and then a plunger to push it all the way down, and
Yep.
push it down to where the mark was, so it always
Right.
started the same.
Always the same.
And then 3-second burst of psh, screw it on. That was a variable. That's why over time we could get an average, and it's hit the sparker and poof, we were shooting potatoes over a quarter of a mile.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it was so damn much fun.
Muzzle velocity was horrific.
We had no idea to measure it. It was, yeah. And so I worked at the newspaper, and we were over at a photographer's house, and his wife worked for a large corporation and did very well, and they had a swimming pool in the backyard. He said, man, go get that potato cannon, because a few years later, we went and got it, and we're shooting potatoes over people's houses. And he goes, man, I want to see what kind of a splash it's going to make. And so, so he aims this thing at the swimming pool, and it hits it, and there's just this giant splash, and there's no potato, anywhere. It was gone, except it wasn't gone.
Did it ricochet?
No, it didn't ricochet.
He's lucky.
It wasn't gone. He had a pretty sharp down angle. Potatoes made of what, Dr. D?
Starch.
What do you think starch does to the sand filter of a swimming pool?
You talk about.
He found out.
Oh yeah, he did.
And that little stunt, he did it to himself. That little stunt cost him a whole new sand filter because it plugged it up.
You talk about science fair projects that people got caught. One of my boys was, I want to do a railgun. And of course, I'm the kind of dad that, let's go to the garage. Let's go to the garage. Let's do it.
Magnets, absolutely.
And so capacitors, and he bought these capacitors, and he made this railgun. And he could fire a little aluminum pellet through 3/4-inch piece of plywood.
Oh, yeah.
And so he did all this.
110 current.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, didn't have to have a nuclear reactor.
No, 110 current charging up capacitors. So he won the school science fair, he won the county science fair, and he went to the state. And this is in California. The guy judging physics at the state fair is from either Boeing or McDonnell Douglas. And he comes up and he talks to my boy and he goes, well, this is pretty impressive. He goes, yeah. He goes, wow, how far does this penetrate? And then he says, you tested it. He goes, yeah. I told him how many pieces of plywood to go through. He goes, I can't let you go any farther, right? Because it's a railgun. Oh, electromagnetic. He goes, yeah. I work for McDonnell Douglas. I work on
DQ.
He says, I work on stuff for the Navy. He says, no, but he gave him his card, and he says, if you decide you want to come work for us, and he said, take this card, and I hope you'll talk to me someday. And my boy did end up being an engineer, but not working for that company.
So we didn't try to go to anywhere else. So we got to go. It's time to wrap it up. We're going to see you over on Amazon Live.
I do have to finish our little work here. Chris says, hi, Kent. Hi, Daniel. And hi, Paul. So that's
Noah
me.
as well. Throw Noah in there.
Howdy, partner.
Noah says hi back.
Harold Locke, of course. Tariq says howdy. And Tariq also says that he wishes that you were his professor.
Thank you.
Tariq lives in the UAE.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And there we go. That's
right,
what
so-
we've got today. So we are moving to Amazon Live. You can catch us there, and that's just going to be in like 2 minutes.
All right.
Sounds great.
See y'all in a few minutes.
Bye, everybody.
See y'all.